Welcome to the live Unscripted podcast with Rosabel, the place where genuine conversations meet inspiring stories, personal growth, and a dash of humor. I'm Rosabel, your host, inviting you to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Celebrate your unique story and find joy in everyday moments. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's explore together. Unscripted, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Life Unscripted podcast with Rosabel. I'm your host, Rosabel, and today we're joined by Julius Jooste, right? A renowned digital content creator whose work reflects cosmopolitan culture and global influence. Born in Rosabel, South Africa, Julius' art and life has been shaped profoundly by his rich experiences traveling the world, creating impactful art, and inspiring creativity as therapy. So let's dive deep into his inspiring journey. Let's talk about early influences and background first. Thank you so much for coming into this space.
Thanks for having me, Rosabel.
Thank you. So, Julius, can you tell us about your childhood in Roadport and how growing up at the end of how was it that it shaped your worldview and artistic sensibilities?
Well, my my youth ended up influencing me quite a lot, especially in my adult phases. You'll notice that a key thread throughout my creative endeavors is an art as therapy approach. And that stems from something known as an ACE score. So ACE stands for abrupt childhood experiences or adverse childhood experiences. And it's a questionnaire of 10 questions. And for every question that you answer in the affirmative, you have to add one to yourself. So I have an ACE score of 6, which is pretty high, but not to use that to form my current identity, but instead to inform sort of like why I create. Studies have shown that people with a high ACE score tend to lose longevity. They can reduce their lifespan by up to 40% when trauma is unprocessed. And that sometimes looks like addiction, it looks like obesity, it looks like neglect. And that's the overarching sort of like purpose behind me creating, is allowing my nervous system to process trauma so that I'm no longer affected by that. So that's the one part of my answer. The other part is I grew up in South Africa at a really interesting time where everybody was given an opportunity to be human. And that sounds kind of strange for the developed world, but for South Africa, for the longest time, that wasn't a right everybody had. It was only a elite few. So with that, I experienced a lot of change, but a lot of empowerment, and also an opportunity for a lot of forgiveness and people having to come to terms with their own trauma. So that's kind of like what it's like growing up in South Africa.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So, you have a diverse academic background in motion picture, music, IT, and even electrical engineering. How did those very different disciplines influence your creativity?
Well, artists are pretty much builders. They're engineers. They take whatever tool they have and they create with it. So those fields that I studied are tools in my creative tool belt. So when it comes to like the motion picture component, there's a lot of narrative and shaping and like good lighting effects or what have you. But also, if you look at my website, it's pretty technical. And that comes from being behind a computer even before I could read or write. So all these things combined educate and inform my creative choices. In terms of the electrical, it has to do with the energy that's available on a circuit. So for a very long time, I covered high profile events in Ibiza, which is seen as like the mecca of escapism. And you have these super clubs, and they require a lot of energy and they have a lot of bells and whistles and lights. And my electrical background gave me an unfair advantage where I could identify patterns in the performance and use that to light my photos or to take better photos. So it all informs each other.
Well, your artwork, the 2016 IMS Gala dinner in Ibiza, definitely had a significant impact. Could you share the inspiration and process behind that piece?
Sure. That piece actually started off as a bet with a friend. I had a business partner in Ibiza who I had been trying to convince that, I'm taking pretty good pictures. I'm sure I could sell it as art. And he very ignorantly said, well, if you sell a piece of art, I'll buy you a pizza. And so it began. A friend of mine was starting or was hosting the IMS gala dinner for Pepe. So Pepe is the owner of Space, the world's most awarded club, and an amazing venue before it shut down. And I donated 2 pieces of work for the gala event in honor of Pepe. To help raise funds for the music school in Langa. And the pieces were so well received. I think the one sold for £2,000 or euros, 2,000 euros. The second sold for about 3,000 euros. And Pepe himself was so impressed with one of the pieces that he put down another 10,000 euros just so that we could print one for him as well. So that's about 12,000 euros on my first night selling art, which is about £250,000 here in South Africa, which is a lot of money. And, that set the bar for me. That confirmed a lot of my intuition or my suspicions that there is a route for me as a successful creative. And I could do it in a way that does not just benefit myself, but benefits others.
Absolutely. And looking at your fine art website, which I really liked it very much, there's a piece titled White Electric Wind from One of One collection. Could you share the story and inspiration behind this piece?
Of course. White Electric Wind it's one of my favorites. If you look at my lock screen on my phone, it's always on there. It's one of the pieces that I first sold in the digital space. And it's influenced by the Mayan zodiac. So I'm not sure if you understand what I mean when I say the Mayan zodiac.
I think I do.
Okay, so they just have different months, and instead of like we having 12 months with different odds and ends, they have 13 exact months, and each month has its own zodiac and its own approach. But long story short, white electric wind is my zodiac sign in the Mayan calendar. And it's a bit more specific than that. So it's not just like I'm an Aries. The sign is given to your birthday. And in this mythology, white electric wind is the agent of change, and it refers to the cosmic winds of the universe, constantly blowing and moving and making sure that things are progressing, evolving, ever changing. And that's sort of like the essence of my being, if such a thing can be fathomed. And that message just always stuck with me. And the way it found me was also beautiful. When I saw this black and white photo, which is a collection of a 30-second long exposure of a fire dancer and just sort of like put on top of each other, I exactly knew that what I was looking at, I immediately knew that what I was looking at was a visual depiction of that Mayan zodiac.
Wow. It's definitely pretty. I like the color and it's pretty. So
It's
how do you
powerful.
see fine art photography evolving and what elements do you believe make art truly valuable?
Well, let me answer that in 2 parts. Fine art is different from commercial art because there's a lot more experimentation involved. So it's not that I'm necessarily being commissioned for an ad in a newspaper or an online campaign. The risk and the onus is on me. I'm pushing the boundaries of my creativity. I'm using the tools in my academic tool belt to create and express my interpretation of life. So that's the fine art component. Just repeat the second part.
So how do you believe that it makes, or what elements do you believe it makes art truly valuable?
So you see this in musicians all the time, and I feel like because I've spent so much time with musicians, it's become relevant for me. But the art, more often than not, heals the artist. And my mission is to share that healing encounter with the collector or with the audience. So the same way you may have a favorite song that's helped you through a breakup or through a difficult period, I hope to achieve the same with my art, to remind you that healing is not only possible, but worthwhile, and that it can be done.
Absolutely. And you have collaborated with high performers across various fields. What are some common habits and mindsets you have observed that contribute to their success?
The best artists that I've worked with are kind. So they do not allow ego to form part of the equation. They understand that creativity is a group effort, and the better an environment we can create for all of us to play together, to explore together, the better the quality of the art is. And that's always what I'm looking for. I'm looking for kind-hearted, fun, but serious professional creatives who understand the impact that their actions could have on audiences.
Right, that they're willing to work as a team in a way and help each other.
Correct.
Absolutely. Seems like you understand that it's like a common goal in the end.
Yeah, I mean, collaboration is great that way. It's like being part of a sports team, but your team changes with every assignment,
Right.
and that's exciting.
That is exciting. So, from your personal experience, what is one critical discipline or habit that you have cultivated that you will say it has significantly impacted your success?
A discipline of mindfulness, a discipline of being present. Um, there So when I first got my DSLR, the camera that I'm shooting with, it was the weekend before a retreat at the Buddhist Retreat Center in Ikopo. And at the suggestion of a friend, I booked myself in for this workshop called Photography as Meditation. And the entire weekend's workshop was about being mindful behind the camera and using the camera to focus the senses. And I feel like that is the most important skill any photographer can cultivate. Because if you are present in the moment, you can get the photo. But if you're distracted, there's a really good chance that you're not going to get the shot.
Absolutely. And you just openly speak about overcoming stress related health issues through art. Can you tell us more about your specific journey and how art became a therapeutic outlet for you?
Sure. So before I became a career creative, I was in corporate. I was working with my dad on a huge assignment for a local municipality. The long and short of it is we were building a Google Earth-like environment of their electrical infrastructure that required me to employ about 70 people full-time and an additional 400 part-time. I had crazy deadlines and crazy goals that I had to achieve, i.e., I had to invoice at least R1 million a month. That's like maybe 100,000 US back then with the exchange rate. And we got it done, but at huge personal cost for me. So much so that I ended up in a hospital with stress-related issues, thinking that it might be a terminal diagnosis, and finding myself in a position where I'm questioning a lot of my decisions. Big things like, what happens if I'm not here in a year? Have I lived the life that I felt I deserved? Am I happy? Am I living the life that I had expected as a child? And the answer to many of those questions were no. And thankfully, the universe gave me the opportunity to learn from that. So I've always felt since then that I've been working on borrowed time, but because of that, I've made sure that the time spent resonates, that it matters, that it feeds my growth, and that it inspires those around me. And even though it was an unfortunate experience, I'm thankful for that health incident because it was a catalyst for so much change and joy and growth in my life. So sometimes the universe just has a way of showing you you're on the wrong path.
I know you mentioned mindfulness a minute ago, and how can listeners practically incorporate creative expression into their lives to enhance their mental and emotional well being?
I think first off, they need to recognize that they are creative beings. Creativity is an innate human experience. And when we acknowledge that we are creations ourselves. We give ourselves permission to explore through the lens of a creative. And that brings us a lot of fulfillment, a lot of growth, a lot of joy. So I think that that's the first step. In terms of practical steps that they can take to be more present, the technique that was taught to me is to just be aware of your breath. So whatever you're going through, focus on the breath in and the breath out. And that transition in between, when it becomes an exhale or it becomes an inhale, that's where the magic lives. And recognize that there's going to come a day that there's no transition, that it's your last exhale or your last inhale. And being with your breath helps you experience the present more fully.
Indeed. Let's talk a little bit about creativity as a sustainable business. So many artists, they struggle with turning their passion into a sustainable career. What do you believe is a key insight that you can share about how to build an international audience?
Well, first, you have to find a really good mentor. Find somebody who's done what you want to achieve and learn from them. Because in doing so, you're going to drastically reduce your own suffering, and you are going to experience success way faster than if you would on your own. Or at least that's been the case with me. I've had tremendous fortune as a creative and the assignments that I've been a part of. And a lot of that did happen in isolation, or it happened in a covenant where there's like a bit of an agreement saying, okay, Julius, I'm going to take you on this beautiful journey and it's going to be interesting and amazing and exciting. But here's the deal. Whatever you experience, you have to share with others. And that's where I'm at in my narrative now. So a lot of what I experienced was in my personal solo capacity, and with the guidance of mentors and coaches the last couple of years, I've been able to comply with my obligation to share the narrative shared with me. So yeah, that's super important, is find support.
Would you say that this was your approach in turning your own creativity into a successful business?
Well, firstly, I think success is subjective. Success depends on who you are and what your expectations are. So for me, I feel the business is successful because it's fulfilling so many of my emotional, spiritual, and human needs. But there's always room to grow, especially in the economic sense. That's the first part. I feel like making a business sustainable allows me the opportunity to further explore, to take more controlled or more informed chances and risks. But I only get to do what I do because there is a little bit of money in the bank account. And sometimes that's okay, but more often than not, it's the reputation that affords you the opportunity. So yes, the business component is important, but so is being reliable, being credible, and being professional.
And then there is the content creation in the digital age. Like what is essential, like strategies that you recommend for creatives to effectively establish their online presence?
I think it starts with the audience. Who are you creating this for? Or better yet, I think Rick Rubin does a really good job at explaining the creative act. Anybody who hasn't read it yet definitely needs to find that book. But typically, artists create for the sake of creation because creativity is its own reward. But once that's done, there's a completely different chapter or experience in the commerce component, meaning now that I've made it, I have to sell it. And then you have to figure out who am I selling it to, or who was it created for? And that requires a different hat. It needs you to take off the creative hat or the photographer's hat or the artist hat and put on the business hat, the marketing hat, the strategic hat, and make sure that the art is seen by the right people and enjoyed within the initial framework. Because art is so subjective. If you see something only visually and there's not a narrative or some context to guide the mind is going to feel overwhelmed. It's not going to get the message that you intended, and the art is not going to resonate. So yes, you have to create the art with the artist hat, but then once that's done, You have to put on the marketer's hat and make sure that it is presented in a way that communicates the message effectively.
Absolutely. And it is definitely important, the personal branding and storytelling in today's digital landscape. That is
Narrative is
also.
everything. When we were still living in caves before the modern age, we would sit around campfires, and in that campfire, we would hear how the storyteller escaped certain death by defeating a lion. And step by step, him explaining how he got to get away from the lion, so that next time I'm in danger and there's a lion chasing me, I am now equipped with a solution on how to avoid that scenario. And after that's happened, the lions attacked me and I've survived, and it's nighttime. Which fire do you think I'm going to go sit around? I'm going to sit around the guy who just told me how to survive a lion attack. And that's why stories are important. They help us navigate and live fuller lives.
Absolutely. There's the magic of storytelling. I talk a
Yeah.
lot about that myself. I also want to know, what do you think about the future of art and technology, like NFTs and digital art? They're rapidly changing the art world. How do you envision the future of art evolving around technology?
Well, there are so many benefits with the advancements of technology. I mean, I'm from South Africa, which is pretty much classified as a third world territory. We do not really have high-end collectors in our economy. So I have to have a very strong online presence and a website and a business registered in the US just to get the opportunity to show my work to those collectors. But now, with something like Web3 and NFT, I can create a piece of art and mint it to a blockchain with pretty much very little overhead, and immediately it's available for purchase to collectors around the world. So that's one of the mechanical components that I've been really passionate about advocating for local creatives here in South Africa. Secondly, I mean, I understand the pressure or the dissatisfaction with AI. There's a lot of creatives that feel threatened or feel like they've become obsolete. Um, and I do understand that. But what a lot of creatives aren't noticing is that users are picking up, like they've become really good at identifying what is AI generated. And because of that, when you have a organic piece of art, whether that's a photograph or something that you've painted or something that you've written by hand, um, it rings or it registers as even more human. And because of that, it's more valuable. So it's not all doom and gloom. Audiences are feeling the AI saturation as well. And as a result of that, they crave more organic art. And that's where artists have an opportunity to arrive, to show up, to be seen.
In a way, AI is actually making human interaction more competitive in a way.
Definitely competitive, exciting, interesting. It's still early days, I think, if we look at
Yes.
where it could go eventually. I feel it's also inevitable. Like it's going to happen sooner or later, so it might as well happen now. But yeah, it's not a bad thing. If we can let the machines do the hard work for us, if we can implement technology as a organic kind of like a biology mixed with technology, that brings a lot of solutions to our current problems, i.e., instead of voting in specific politicians or political parties, something like AI and Web gives us the opportunity to be governed based on fairness. So when you have a resource-based economy, you go check in with the computer and say, I need corn, and it will register that you are the first person that asks for corn. And when there's corn available, you will receive corn. And there's no opportunity to manipulate the system. So there's no opportunity for you to befriend said politician or donate more, or what have you, and affect the outcome so that somebody else gets the corn instead of you. So yeah, if approached correctly, um, in the spirit of well-being, maybe with a dash of philosophy. There's definitely a lot of potential for these technologies to create a better quality of life for everybody.
And on that topic, what advice do you have for artists looking to explore NFTs or digital mediums to showcase their work?
Well, the NFT market has changed a lot. So whatever medium you will be selling on, cultivate a community first. Find people who resonate with your music or with your art form, and get them to care. And when they care, they will support you. Kevin Kelly wrote a wonderful article called 1000 Fans, or 1000 True Fans, maybe a decade and a half ago. And pretty much what he hypothesizes, he says, for an artist to thrive, so not survive, but thrive in the modern day, they only need 1000 true fans. And a true fan is classified as somebody who's willing to spend $100 a year on your art. So if you have 1000 true fans, that effectively means that you have a business that's generating round about $100,000. I mean, that's a lot. That's enough. I mean, you can have a really good life with that amount of money. You're not going to be the next Elon or anything like that, but you can still pay the bills, expand your business, be supportive in your family or support your family, and then some. So it all starts with community. It all starts with finding people who are willing to support your creative journey.
What a great message. Julius, what's next for you? Are there any upcoming projects or collaborations you'd like our listeners to know about?
To be honest, I've been playing it very loose in the calendar. And the reason I've been doing that is because when cool assignments come up, I'm available. So front and center is me turning 40 later this year in June. And that's an exciting exercise. There's a lot of introspection, retrospection, preparation, what is supposed to be the greatest years of my life. So that's sort of like where I'm at right now. My primary focus is selling more art because that opens up a lot of doors for me. And then other than that, it's sharing the message that it's possible to heal through creative acts. And then, yeah, if I get to build some websites for other creatives in the process, that's cool too, because I love helping them. I love making their work available to a bigger audience. That's also very rewarding.
So for those who don't know much or they would like to get in touch with your work and everything, can you tell us where your presence on social media, tell us where they can find you?
So for my art, you can just go to juliusjooste.fineart on Instagram. But I prefer people to just go to the website. The website has all the social media on there. So for my fine art, you can go to fineart.juliusjooste.com. That's FINEART.JULIUSJOOSTE.com. And from there, you can order directly from 48 countries around the world, including US, Europe, Australasia, and parts of Southern Africa.
Is there anything that you would like that I have not asked you or talked about that you would like to tell our audience?
There's a bunch of things. I think it's time for me to ask you a question.
All right.
What do you think that your audience needs to know that we haven't discussed yet? Let's make this a collaborative effort.
Perfect. So one of the things I was thinking, because you do talk a lot about healing, and I like that idea. And I don't know if I ask you on specifics. And I know you mentioned that there was a time that I guess you were doing work with your dad, right? And then you had this, scare, this event that happened to you. Is that when did you decide to become an artist? Is that what brought you in, or tell me more about that?
I feel like if we follow Rick Rubin's philosophy of what a creative is a creative is somebody who is sensitive to let's call it the voice of the universe. Everything that is not yet in physical existence lives in a plane, in the universe, and it's just dying to be brought into consciousness. Creatives are the sensitive souls that are attuned to that frequency, and they can listen tentatively to what the universe wants to bring into fruition next. So that is essentially what a creative or an artist is, irrespective of the palettes or the tools or the instruments that you use. It's a certain kind of sensitivity combined with a structured format, like step one, do this, step two, do that, and eventually being able to bring that abstract concept into reality. And I've been doing that all my life, whether that's been as an artist or as a photographer or computer designer or as a student or whatever the case might be. That sensitivity is what's allowed me to do what I do. And I would encourage people to allow themselves to feel, allow themselves to be sensitive and open to the messages that life is sending them. Because in those messages, in those intuitions, lies the seeds that bring forth our healing, that bring forth our liberation.
Thank you for sharing that. And now that I was thinking about what you say about the Mayan calendar. So you're from South Africa, but what made you? What draw you to the Mayan calendar?
Like any knowledge that like any knowledge that's worth knowing, or at least in my life, is knowledge that has found me. So yes, over the years, I have developed a discipline for study, and I know where to go find mentors, books, references, inspiration. But something like the Mayan calendar is something that found me when I was ready for it. And that's just been a recurring theme for me. I have so many beautiful books that have helped me in my journey, but only because they found me when I was ready for them.
And what calls your okay, so you were found by it, but once you're in, what keeps you in that journey? What's like, okay, this is worth keep digging into this and looking and creating?
So it's the push versus the pull, isn't it? I'm not rolling the mountain up the hill as punishment or as a form of suffering. I am rolling it up because it's exciting. I get to do this. There is so much innate reward in doing something really difficult and achieving it. And that's been the big unlock, is I allow my passion to draw me, so to attract me to it as opposed to me pushing it up. And as soon as that shift happened, that's when the big changes came. It became a lot easier. It became a lot more organic and fluent. And it was just surrendering to the nature of my ability, my desires, and the potential all that has for change, improving the quality of life for.
Now, besides art, work, creation, what do you do for fun?
It sounds counterproductive, but I really like working, so I work for fun.
That's good. That is actually good. There's nothing wrong with that because it's also sounds like you love what you do. And that's
Very
a
much so.
recurrent theme on my podcast that when you love your job or what you do, you don't have to work one day in your life.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, work is important. I'm not
Yes.
shying away from the fact that I'm working, but I'm working on my own terms, and that's the difference. What I really enjoyed the last couple of months is physical exercise. So I've been back in the gym for maybe 3, 4 months, and that's been such a safe space for me to unwind, to explore, to push myself. The rewards are visible. It's not like building a business or doing art where, the reward comes later or the rewards are more abstract. When I go to the gym and I put in my reps, within a couple of days, I see results. And that just encourages me to do more. And that's been awesome.
And then it helps relieve stress and all. So it's
Yes.
also good for your mental and physical health.
Yeah, I've learned to use exercise to complement my personal objectives. So a lot of what I'm doing is groundbreaking, and because it hasn't been done, I encounter a lot of resistance. So resistance training helps me prepare for that. So whenever I encounter resistance in my business, I understand that I just have to do more reps. I just have to dig a little bit deeper and push a little bit harder. But there have been different episodes in my life where resistance would not be the answer, but instead being more flexible, being more present, being more mindful. And when those are the objectives that I am encountering, then I switch to something like yoga, because yoga allows me to be flexible. It allows me to be still and uncomfortable at the same time. And then if there are other objectives that need me to excel or to progress, then I walk, I just keep moving forward, because that body mind experience builds off one another.
Do you have any questions for me?
I do, but I just want to know more about you. What is your story? I know that you've written a book. It's done pretty well. I know that this podcast is pretty new for you, but I want to understand what your intention behind this is. What is it that you hope people get from this experience? And then what can I do to help you achieve that?
Thank you. Well, let me tell you, it resonates very much with what you say. In a way, this found me and I opened my mind to it. So I wrote my book. It's a book that I wrote about maybe a year ago, started putting it together because it was born as an idea when I was 16 years old of writing about my life. And then I lost my mother when I was 17 and I immigrated from Colombia, South America to the US completely by myself. I did not know any English whatsoever. And so to be able to make something out of, there was not a whole lot I'm just amazed of where I am right now in my life anyway. So I write this book and then the title is The Courage to Succeed, a True American Dream, right? And the message of the book in a nutshell is basically saying, hey, whoever you are, wherever you are, you have the courage to do whatever it is that you are dreaming of, that you're wanting to do with your life. It's simple, based on my life story, right? So then I was like, how do I bring this message out? How do I tell people about it? And so it occurred to me, why don't we do a podcast? But it was based on the book where I could even just read, go chapter by chapter. And then next thing, my husband jumped in and we started talking about life. And it's just how everything was just kind of falling into place. And I like the idea of being unscripted because we just talk about, we're just real, like who we are, what makes us, what's day to day. We even had a couple episodes where we're just here and my daughter walks in and, so we're not trying to show this perfection. We're just trying to show ourselves how we are human. And so this just been amazing. And then on top of this, as I'm going through this journey, then I discovered that there are a lot of other countless voices out there like you and me trying to tell their story, but not only telling the story, they are trying to convey a message through that. And so I realized, why don't I just open this space for people just to come in and talk and say what they're trying to say? Because there's mainstream media, and some people might dream one day their story one day might be showcased in their shows or whatever. Let's be ourselves. Let's talk about what makes us in our day-to-day life. And it's been it's been an amazing journey. I mean, I've just been creating content and getting amazing people like you here telling me what they're going through. They're in so many different ways. And what I also like about it, at this space, there's not a specific niche. We're listening because at the same time I'm listening to you, you're listening to me. There's somebody else behind, somewhere else that's also listening. And you never know who that person is. You never know how you're helping them. So that is basically the idea, to communicate.
Yeah, you're touching on something that has been very prevalent as a result of the rise of technology. In Kevin Kelly's 1000 True Fans, he essentially says that the gatekeepers are dead. So gone are the days that you had to have a family-friendly album and then take it to a studio and then they would mass produce it and put it on the radio. And, that was the only way that you could become a sustainable artist. But now, because of the internet, it's put the power back into the hands of the people.
Exactly.
Platforms like podcasts and YouTube channels and what have you are relating better to audiences because of that authenticity component. So we're definitely on the right track.
Yes, definitely. So I am so excited and very passionate about doing this. By the way, I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm a nurse practitioner. I work in the medical field. I work Monday through Friday. I'm also a mom. And I'm doing this like on my little free time I have on weekends, and I'm just loving it.
Right.
It's complementing my job really well because then I and so when you mention the word mindfulness, it's beautiful because I'm actually practicing more mindfulness now. Because now for every particular story, every person that I talk to, like I just focus, this is what we're doing right now. And then I move to the next. And so I feel like I'm in a way I'm living my best life because I'm just focusing on as I'm going through things. And then when I go to work and I interview my patients and I talk to them and I am able to focus on their journey, what's going on. And so I don't know, but I have had an amazing, like in the past 2 weeks, it's been like my mind is just open,
Yeah.
open,
The,
so
the skills
receptive.
have sharpened.
Yes, yes. You
Yeah.
would think, and one of the reasons it was calling my attention because now it's when I feel like I've been I always had an active mind, but now because I'm juggling and I'm doing this pretty much alone, I'm juggling through doing pre-interviews or getting doing the recording and then doing this, and so I am trying to stay on task, and then not only staying on it, but it's important for me to do quality. Quality. So not just the quantity of quality. So to be able to do that, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like training my own mind.
I'm definitely on board with the whole training thing. Like I'm just getting those reps in and sort of like figuring out what's helping, figuring out what needs to be developed more. And in that, that's the key to any successful endeavor is being consistent and small incremental successes. And that's it. If you can master those two, your success is pretty much guaranteed. But again, keep in mind that success totally subjective. And it's
Yes.
very important for all of us to be honest about what we need from a encounter and measure our success based on those initial expectations.
Well, it's interesting. My book is called The Courage to Succeed, right? And to me, success is not a place that you arrive. It's a journey. And in many ways, I feel successful because to me, success has nothing to do with perhaps having money in the bank or it's about how comfortable you feel with who you are, with where you are in life. And I'm finding myself in that place. And also to be able to, for example, this is something I talk very much about my book, just like your art. That's your creation, is your baby. And I don't know, this is just my personal opinion. Everything has an audience, right? And there will be people who will perhaps love my book and love the message that's in there. But there might be other people that may not like it or not interested. And you know what? To be able to be okay with that, to me, that's success. To me, not trying to find the next thing, you know, I'm not saying that I'm not trying for people to like it's very organic. The people it's just so refreshing to know that the people that are coming to me to this having these interviews they're here because they want to be. It's not because they're getting paid or no, we're just interacting with each other. We're just having a good time, making connection, which in the end that's pretty important. That's what we need.
Definitely.
More connection.
You touched on something. Sorry, you have to excuse me. I'm on a different side of the planet, and that means that the brain fog has settled in a little bit earlier than I anticipated. But you touched on a key principle of being creative. Sorry, it has to do with showing up, but I have not solidified this thought, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But if it does find me within the next couple of minutes, then I'll be sure to let you know.
Julius, you're welcome to come to this space anytime. We can always, there's so much that we can talk about. We can bring you back in. It's no problem. I know it's super late where you are and it's been a long day.
But also a very productive day. So I don't mind
Yes.
doing this.
Yes. Very productive. Very productive. I'm one of those people that I wake up pretty much every day and I just say to myself, this is a great day to be alive. Because you never know. Our lives are stories that are waiting to be written.
Yeah.
And I'm just always excited to see what's going to be in what.
Yeah. The reason life is a gift, and that's why they call it the present.
Exactly. Yes. But anyways, well, thank you, Julius. Thank you so much for this such an enlightening conversation. I mean, we talked a little bit about everything. And I just want to say to our listeners to be sure to explore Julius. Let me say it. Juster? Did I
Yes.
say it right? Okay. Your captivating work by visiting your website, which I'll let you say it. Your website.
Yeah. So they can go to fineart.juliusjooste.com. That's FINEART.JULIUSJOOSTE.com. But if they want to see the other assignments, the web design, the photography solutions, they can just go to the main page, which is juliusjooste.com. That's JULIUSJOOSTE.com. And from there, they can get the full view. They can see the entire spectrum of my 15 plus years of being a career creative and what that's entailed. But I'd also encourage them to check in with me if they are artists that need help with online presence, if they are people who feel like they want to invite mindfulness into their sanctuaries. Please do get in touch. There's so much that life has blessed me with, and I would love to share those insights with you too.
Thank you so much. And again, for the listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Life Unscripted podcast for more insightful conversations. Thank you for joining us today on Life Unscripted. Until next time, stay inspired, keep living your story. Thank you.